Grief Connection. I am so excited today to hold space with the beautiful Ashley. Ashley, how are you doing today?
Morning. I'm great. I'm so
Oh,
excited to do this. Thanks so much for having me.
I am so excited to share our conversation because I wanted to bring Ashley forward with everybody so that we could explore grief with children and supporting them or families with children through that journey. And Ashley is a certified clinical counselor and she is working through Wildflower Therapy in Regina. And I
hmm
have to tell you guys, we personally know the incredible experience working with Ashley. You and I connected, I think, was it 3 or 4 years ago now?
Yeah, I think it was 3 years ago now.
That is wild how time flies. So,
Yes.
if anybody knows, my middle son, he is a tough cookie. He's a wild ride. And we've tried multiple therapists. And I think the important thing about a parent is finding somebody that can actually see the unique values and individuality that your child holds and celebrate it and work with it. And the hard part about Nico is he is very intuitive and he reads people. So if anybody's
Yes.
annoyed or does not enjoy his energy, he is on it ASAP.
Yes, he's very smart. He really picks up on like energies and he's a spicy guy,
Oh,
but
he is extra spicy. I mean, it is wild. I'll never forget the psychiatrist when we were going through like the levels of extremes on his tantrums as a child. And he stopped and looked at us and was like, okay, so I've never heard somebody going that long as a child with these challenges.
right?
Like he's
Yes.
very defiant, right? So, of course, I attract the most unique situations, but we connected to Ashley, and I'll never forget when you said how interesting and how she was so excited to connect to him and fascinated by the information we gave her because it was out of characteristic to most children that she had connected to. And Jason
Mhm.
and I stopped after and spoke of the volume and the power that held for us as parents for somebody who was willing to be intrigued, engage, and explore the individual aspects of him.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's so important, like as a counselor, especially with kids, is not just like, okay, we have to do this like corrective behavior. It's a lot about being curious and connecting with them. And like you said, most kids, but especially Nico, he was very like perceptive on energy and just
Yeah.
that like, do you get me? Like, do you like me? Are you connecting with me in a certain way? And establishing that rapport. But he's so unique, he's so smart, he's so fun. And
Tough man. He's
but he would challenge me too. And I think that's
right.
another part of like when you are a good like counselor is allowing your clients as well to like challenge you. And
That's
he did that.
amazing. I love that. I'll never forget. I'd be like, blah, 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 but it was us. This week it was us. It wasn't him. He was reacting to us, right? So it was
Yes.
like, it was such a great experience working with you because we always are communicating. You're receptive of both sides. And he never felt like he was obligated to just sit there and like talk. Like there was always
hmm
exchange and games and activities and joy in the
Totally.
experience, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And like you really, again, with kids, like you want them to buy into it and you want it to be as fun and as engaging and as hands-on as possible. And sometimes it's like, they're learning things when maybe they're actually not even aware that they're
Yeah.
learning that or like learning about themselves. And yeah, he's so fun. And I think like a big part of working with kids obviously is working with families. And you guys were so receptive to like, hey, let's try this, let's try that. Because although like we have certain tools and certain training and education and stuff, it is dependent on the family too. And like what are we
Oh,
seeing and like how can we meet him where he's at?
Yeah, and vulnerable for everybody, right? Because we have
Yeah,
to start looking at ourselves and adjusting our natural tendencies to support their individual journey and where
yeah,
they're at emotionally with it. So it's a
absolutely.
very layered experience, but I was so grateful because we had gone through so many people. And when you find that gem, you just never let that go. So I'm
Mm.
really interested on how you found your career. Like, where were you at and how did this align for you?
Oh, well, yeah, that has many steps to it. I feel like,
Yeah.
I initially actually, when I was going through university, I did not want to do counseling.
Wow.
Um,
I would have never thought.
I initially, went into the assessment piece and diagnoses, and that was kind of my area of interest. And when I started doing private services at Wildflowers, my supervisor at the time was like, I think it is a really good time for you to also like add counseling into your experience and stuff. And I fell in love with it. I feel like being able to like connect with kids and families, and it's not just like that assessment where it's very planned for you and guided for you, and you say the same thing to the same family and the same kids. And although I think there's definitely value in that, I fell in love with counseling and the relationships that you can form with families and kids for sure.
Well, that definitely radiates in everything that you do because you can really tell when somebody's going through the motions or when somebody's invested in the
Mm,
experience. Do you know what I mean? And
yeah.
that hit Jason and I immediately within the first like 15 minutes of connecting to you. So it
Oh,
just speaks to
good.
the volume and the quality that you provide for the people that connect to you. And it's so great to have people passionate about their work.
Yeah, totally. And again, kids pick up on that, right? Like you can't just go through the motions with kids. You
Yes.
have to be passionate about it. You have to be present. And
Yeah.
yeah, I love it.
That's amazing. So, one thing
Mhm.
that I thought was very fascinating because through my kind of journey of exploring how much grief was connected in my path, I was also really recognizing how it was showing up in the layers with my son. And I really found that you kind of had a specialization and passion about grief because you saw the impacts with children. Are you able to
Mhm.
share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, for sure. I think I don't know, like from a really young age, like I think I was 5 and then 8 again when I lost both of my like grandparents, my grandfathers specifically, and then I was around 15 when my grandma passed. So I feel like there's been like a lot of like heavy loss, some very close family ones. And then as a counselor in this current position, I really became like more curious, I guess, about the kinds of supports that could be out there, the kind of education and training I could take specifically to support kids and families in grief when my mom died. So my mom had breast cancer. She was in remission for a short period of time and then it came back. And so when she died, my daughter was just turning 2. And that hit hard, like as a parent and like losing a parent and then you're grieving, although sometimes in those moments you don't realize you're just going through the motions because as parents, I think we just feel like we have to, or sometimes we do have to.
Yes.
And so I really like looked at her a lot and was just like, if like how do I support her? And she was so young, but that just made me again like more curious and I think more empathetic and sensitive to like understanding or wanting to know more about kids grief and how to support them. I think as a society we often think that we should shield and protect them from the hard things, and again
Yeah.
as parents I think that's just a natural thing that we want to do, but also it's okay for us to let them grieve, and grieve with them. And of course it comes with developmental things to keep in mind and age appropriate ways to support them,
Yeah.
and they are resilient, but it doesn't mean that they don't feel the things too.
It's so true because the children are so connected to us as parents. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we're the foundation. So when all of a sudden our world kind of shifts, you can start to see a lot of changes in the way they engage in life, experience things. What do you think are
Totally.
big things that parents should be kind of aware of? Because sometimes children are really good at hiding and holding it within. Are we able to kind of explore that a bit?
Yeah, for sure. I think, like in terms of, behaviors or things that we would see when we know kids are grieving, it can be so variable because you can see like
Yeah.
physical things, like they might more have like a hard time sleeping, or they might complain more of headaches or stomach aches. The emotional pieces that many of
Yeah.
us, maybe hold in because grief is a really, really tough emotion. It's uncomfortable. We typically don't want to feel that. Um, and like depending on the type of grief, if it's traumatic grief, like they might have flashbacks, they might blame themselves, more maybe
Yeah.
unfocused at school, more attachment to a caregiver, maybe, or the
Yes.
opposite, like they might really want to like push us away. Um,
Oh, my
and
heart when that happens, right? It's so hard.
it is so
It's so
hard.
hard. You
Yeah,
want to
and I
take it
think
away from them, right? And we have to hold space with them.
totally. Yeah, and that's exactly the thing. Like we do want to like relieve that emotion for them, or like, help them with that, but things like, like video games, more TV, food is another one sometimes that many of us go to like relieve certain emotions, right? Whether it's like we're
Yes.
celebrating because we're happy, or we're kind of like coping with some chips and dip because we haven't had a great day. And that's okay. But all of those things actually like don't process the emotion. I think there's space for those, of course, because we want to keep routines, and it's like we're going to keep going to basketball practice because that's just typically what we do.
Yeah.
Those are distractions, they're busy work,
Mm.
they're routine things, so I think there's definitely place for that.
Yeah.
But they typically don't help us process those emotions. They're distractors.
So, do you think like holding a routine through these experiences of either somebody being ill and supporting and witnessing that as a child is important, or do you think it's
Mhm.
more important in the process afterwards? Like, where would be a critical point for us providers to kind of establish like the moving forward or through momentum?
Yeah, and I think it's so important for us to like involve kids in those decisions too, right? And again, this is going to depend on their age. Like at the
Yeah.
time, I couldn't ask my 2-year-old, like,
Yeah.
do you want to go to the hospital to go see grandma? Like she didn't really have an opinion. So I
Yes.
feel like sometimes we do have to make those decisions for them. I always say like involve them and ask them like what they
Mhm.
want, right? Give them maybe some choice in those decisions. When we really want to be mindful, I guess, is when when we see things maybe that, they, are not enjoying the typical things as much as they used to,
Yeah.
or they're maybe refusing to go to basketball practice or to school. They seem more stuck in one emotion instead of being able to like move through them in maybe
Yeah.
a more healthy way. So those are times when we might want to be like, okay, like do we stick more to routine? Do we allow them to maybe miss some of those things? So, the typical social science answer is it depends.
Yes. That's amazing. But I really love that you bring the perspective of watching and including and not just steamrolling, because I think a
Mhm.
lot of times as parents, we want to override a child's voice in the sense
Yeah.
of like, we know what's best for them or this is what we need. And it's important
Mhm.
to recognize just because we might be able to function through something that they might not have the ability yet.
Yeah, for sure. And I think preparing them too as much as we can for whether it's a funeral or it is going to visit grandma, of like saying like if we of course do want them to be there, again, sometimes we can make those decisions for them, but
Yes.
also letting them know like what to expect, or if there's if we do become too overwhelmed or it's too much, like is there a code word we can use? Is there a place we
Oh, I
can go
love
to
that.
kind of like get some separation from all of the things that are going on?
Yes.
I think just preparing them as much as we possibly can. It's also okay for us to be like, I actually don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what to expect. We don't have to have all of the answers. But kind of involving them, I think, as much as we can is really, really important.
I love that. I love that. Um, and it's interesting to me too, because being a medium, we have an open dialogue in our home around death.
Hmm.
Which sounds very odd, but like my children always feel safe to talk about illness, dying, the experience of being in spirit, connecting to spirit. And
Yeah,
it's something that I'm always reminded of because a lot of times I look back on my childhood, that's something that we kept hush hush because we knew it would ignite emotions or it would impact somebody else. So I wanted
totally.
to explore about communication around, talking to children about it or even broaching it because, supporting a child in the experience of somebody going through cancer, we have to be aware of how to communicate to them or preparing them for somebody to transition or a sudden loss. What are some
Yeah.
things that you can bring to light for people to be aware of, either in a support role or a parental role?
Well, one thing as a parent, and I think many of my like clients' parents, this is a really tough one.
Yeah.
Like the language around death,
Yeah.
right? Um, Saying the word dead is it's icky.
Yeah.
It really is. It's
Yeah.
uncomfortable. It just gives you goosebumps. It
Yeah.
seems so like harsh in a way.
Heavy. Feels
Heavy.
heavy. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
Feels
So
cold even. It's like my body
it
goes
is.
cold and it's like it's connected to a
Yeah.
lot of horror movies or different things, scary stuff, right?
Yes. Yes, totally. Like we think more of like, I know when I think of dead, I think of, I don't know, like gore or something
Right?
for some reason, right? And it's like, oh, that's not but language is really important. Research now is saying like kids as young as 4 now actually really understand the permanence of death.
Wow, I
And
would never have
yeah.
thought that.
Never. And so when we say things, and I know you and I had this conversation, I took this training and they talked about Disney movies specifically. And
Right.
yes, these are for kids. And of course, they're going to have, use imagination and creativity and all of that
Yeah.
stuff in there. But they kind of mess us up when it comes to death, right?
Yeah.
It's magical. It's not permanent in most
Yeah.
movies. The prince kisses the princess and she's back to life. And although that's a beautiful thing, it's a
Yeah.
children's movie, and then that's awesome, and we want that to have, and we want them to experience those kinds of like innocent, magical things.
Yeah.
Um, but there are a lot of times where we use that same language or those examples, right? Of like,
Yeah.
oh, they went to a better place, or they've
Yes.
moved on, or they're gone, or they're sleeping, right? Like
Yeah.
grandma's sleeping. And again, when you think about kids as young as 4 who maybe do understand that dead, died, permanent,
Yes.
that kind of messes with them, right? Because it's like, well, where is this better place that grandma is? Why aren't we
Yes.
there?
Yes.
And so it's like, well, or like the dog went to this farm and whatever, like kind
Yeah.
of ever wording we use so that it doesn't hit them as hard.
Yeah.
But then it may lead to some confusion. It
Yeah.
may lead to maybe more questions too.
Yeah.
And so that's one that I know myself even like, and parents too, they kind of have like cringe a little bit in session when I say the person died. Like they are not
Yes.
sleeping, they did not move on. Um, they're dead.
Yeah. That's beautiful though that you can bring that reality component to it and feel safe in it because I really feel like it's an opportunity for us to connect and grow in that experience together.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that all of that conversation has to be around those words, right?
Yeah.
But it's important for them to understand that permanence of it. Like, what does dead mean then is usually another question that comes up. Well,
Yes.
either they were sick and their body shot down, or
Yeah.
there was an accident and they stopped breathing. Like
Yeah.
that is those are facts.
Yeah.
And facts usually or often help limit or kind of calm down that anxiety, right? Because otherwise
Yeah.
they have questions. And so we really want to be like, look, this is the reality that happened.
Yeah.
We can use those words, but it doesn't all have to be dark. With kids, you can
Yeah.
then go into things of like, where would you imagine that grandma is, right? Like, it doesn't mean you
Yes.
can't be creative and tap
Yeah.
into all of those things that do comfort us, but it is important for us to use the correct language with them.
I really love that. And it's very interesting too for me because before I kind of connected to my journey, I really protected my kids in a lot of ways. And
Yeah.
it's interesting seeing the difference in them. So, like Nico, we were able to have him present when we had to put our dog down. And
Yeah.
we were able, and it was very profound for him. And it was a very powerful experience in the sense it gave him closure. And he was able
Right.
to connect to the animal through that experience. And then JJ gets very overwhelmed with things, emotional, but we have noticed the more we converse with him
Yeah.
and, you know, explain where he's at and go through the steps with him, it decompresses the
Yeah.
overwhelm because there's clarity in it.
For sure. And I think there has to be a good, healthy balance of, facts.
Yeah.
um, and also definitely connecting with the emotion and sitting with whatever that emotion is too.
Yeah.
And it's okay for them to see us experience that. Like I was in a store in August. We had another really tough loss in our family this summer. My mom's brother, my uncle, just hiking and had a heart attack, and it was so traumatic for the people that were there with
Oh,
him. And my daughter and I were shopping, and I got this phone call, and just starts crying in the store, and she's like, what's happening? And I told her, and she had questions like, are you feeling sad? And I said, yeah, I'm feeling very sad. um and that's okay. Like, it's so tough to be vulnerable. It's tough for us to let them see us be vulnerable, but how could you not? Like, something
oh.
significant happens and we feel it.
Yeah, yeah. But
Right.
like think about the connection point of that too. It's interesting because for me, when my grandmother died, it was the first time I got to experience stories and connect to my relatives that I had no
Mhm.
relationship with me. So even though I was grieving the grandmother I always wished I could connect with, I got such a beautiful experience from the process of like hearing the stories, seeing the pictures, and connecting to people that are extensions of me. And I just want to remind people too that it can be such a powerful connection point and give you a sense of identity through these experiences too, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, it really can. And I think it sounds maybe morbid to say, but um the part about funerals or having people around when somebody
yeah,
dies is so comforting. Like, we ordered, I think, like $200 or $300 worth of Chinese food into palliative care the night that my mom died, and it was just like you sat around and you laughed, people shared stories. And even though maybe some of that conversation wasn't around my mom, and when we think
yeah,
about things that are distractors at the time,
right?
that was a big one. But you know what? There's space for that too. And when you think back to those things, like, oh yeah, I remember everybody was there and this is what we did. And yeah, there's definitely, afterwards, to be able to do things again. With kids are great to do these kinds of activities. And I know
Yes.
we'll get to those and talk about those, because they are so creative and imaginative.
Yes.
That it's fun. Is that weird to say?
I don't
Like,
think so. I really like I don't think so because it can be such a positive hard experience. Which when we look at
yeah.
challenges in life, how great is it to have positive experiences in the challenges, right? Like mini
Yeah.
blessings.
Yeah, and I think lots of us really think, because we're not sad, maybe we're not grieving, or that
Mhm.
grief equals sadness. And so lots of parents are maybe concerned sometimes of like, well, my kiddo lost this really important person, and I don't think they're grieving because they haven't really cried. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, like, it's a tangled ball of emotions, and one
Yes.
may come out, but it's also okay for us, like you said, to share stories
Yeah.
and have fun in a way that, of course, we're still feeling sad, but we can also be happy and grateful of the memories, of the stories, of the people that are around us.
I love that. I love that. And then for people to just kind of be aware, because a lot of us are supporting other adults who have children who are going
Yeah.
through significant experiences, a loss of a parent or a loved one close to them, or even another child. How are we able to kind of support these people that we want to show that we're present for? Do you have any suggestions on being able to support their children so they can have space to grieve?
Oh, yeah, that's a really tough one. And I think it, of course, depends too on the parent and
Yes.
I guess like what they can give and what kind of support people they have around us too.
Yeah.
I mean, I was so lucky when I lost my mom that my husband just completely took over parenting. And it made the hard time a little bit more easy, right? He just
Yeah.
took over. It wasn't like, do you want me to take her? He just took her, and when I
Yeah.
wanted her around, he brought her, and when I
Oh,
needed time with my family, he understood that and took her. So I think allowing ourselves as parents to like accept that help, it does not
yeah.
mean that you're ignoring your kid or
Yeah.
putting them off on the side. Um, but we are also allowed to take some space and grieve, and we
Yes.
really need to like accept that help. Like if somebody asks you, do
Yeah.
you want this, do you want us to take so and so for a couple hours?
Yeah.
Again, there was a person that reached out the day of my mom's funeral. Kylie was really young and I wanted to allow myself to grieve, and so I made that choice that at 2 years old she was not going to come. um
Good.
and
Wow.
and that was a hard one, but she had been to the hospital.
Yeah.
She had seen grandma at home, and I was just like, I need to allow myself to grieve and
Yeah.
I need to be present. And so we made that choice. And there was like my sister-in-law's sister actually was like, again, didn't ask, but was just like, I'm gonna take Kylie that day.
That's amazing because
So
it takes the pressure off of you.
it does. And I think for those who are either like parents that are supporting their kids through grief,
Yeah.
or other people who are supporting like maybe a friend through grief or something, I always say, like, as my experience, I'm like, don't ask, just do something. Like, don't
Yeah.
ask, because people are always going to be like, no, that's okay. We're
Yeah.
always going to be, no, it's
I'm
fine,
always that
I'm
person,
good.
right?
Yeah,
Hyper
me
independent, not used to
too.
having people support me. So it's, you
Yeah,
feel very vulnerable in receiving it too, because you don't know if
yeah.
it's going to be thrown at you at a certain point. But it's also seeing that like people can come from a genuine place and a loving place.
Yeah, for sure. And I think as parents, we I was better able to support Kylie, or
Yeah.
to even support my husband, because he was
Yeah.
grieving my mom too, in a
Yeah.
different way, of course. And so I think it's just as a parent or as an adult, like allowing ourselves to feel that and
Yeah.
not feeling any guilt or shame about that, because we
Yes.
deserve to feel that too. And then we can do better for them. Then we can,
Yeah.
involve them in parts of it if we want to. We can stick to routine things. We can have a
Yeah.
little fun day. We can
Yeah.
be sad and cry about it if we want
Yeah.
to. But I think we do better for them, of course, when we're able to also feel those things too.
As a medium, I'm always an advocate of people trying to create space to care for themselves, because if we suppress and we don't give that expansion of experiencing the grief or the emotions around it, it
Hmm.
just condenses and becomes like this wound that gets festered over time, and eventually we have to hold space with it. And I feel as though we get robbed when we focus and get hyper connected to everything and throwing ourselves into everything instead of creating that space and asking for it.
Yeah, well, and the busy, right? The keep
Yeah.
busy, keep the
Yeah.
routine, which again, I think there is space for. It's always such a balance, right? Of like, but we don't just have to keep doing the
Yes.
things, right?
Yes.
And I think another big one on this topic, when we think of like adults supporting each other too, is we often compare. Like, I know my dad, who lost his wife, was
Yeah.
like, I like had kind of had this, I should be stronger because, you guys
Mm.
lost your mom. And it's like, yeah, but you lost your wife. Like there's no like this is bigger than the other.
Yes.
It all sucks.
It all
um
sucks.
it all sucks, but that doesn't mean that you should grieve less than
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
right?
That's amazing. I love that you give that permission to people and just that awareness too, because it's something I feel people need to receive more. People need to hear more in
Hmm.
those connection points. And then I want to explore with you because I would like to know what creative ways you like to support people or suggest people supporting children in either activities or ways of
Hmm.
honoring our loved ones, because I really feel these are important to tap into the emotion and, have a connection to the ones on the other side that we are longing or missing, or even a parent that's like across seas or something, right? Like grief shows up in
Yeah.
that disconnect all the time. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. And again, this is, the awesome thing about working with kids,
Yeah.
even with this really tough emotion, um, is like allowing them to be imaginative and creative. So of course, when you're working with kids with grief, like you want to meet them where they're at with
Yeah.
any kid, right? Um, do a little bit of education around it, like what do you know about it, how are you feeling about that. But we do a lot of hands-on stuff. Grief with kids is so unique, but books are the number one thing that I reach for with kids. They're relatable, for a
Yeah.
kiddo who's like, I don't know how much I really want to talk about this or open up about it.
Yeah.
With any emotion that we're working with in counseling, reach for a book.
Yeah.
They are awesome. I know I shared a few with you in terms of resources. And then with most books, you almost can always go into some sort of activity or some sort of
Mhm.
art project, to kind of help them express, I guess, maybe how they're feeling or what questions they have.
That's actually really good because
Mm.
I would not think to do it. I would think that they would have to digest, but it actually makes sense that we transition into something they can move forward with from that moment.
Yeah, it's just a little bit less pressure on them, right? Instead
Yeah.
of like, what's your experience? How are
Yeah.
you feeling? And they are like, whoa, like this
Yeah.
is a really
Take
tough
step
topic.
down.
Why are you coming at me like this? And it's like, well, and a few of the books, and definitely the one that I shared with you, like the memory box,
Yeah.
that's one of my favorite ones. And I really love it because it doesn't talk about a specific kind of grief. It could be
Yeah.
somebody lost their dog. It could be somebody has, moved, like a friend moved, or somebody died.
Yeah.
And that one is really great because it does pair with an awesome activity where we do create like a memory box for the kids.
Love
They can
that.
decorate it, and then again, they can use that however they want. One of my favorite things to do with that one is especially around Christmas or around holiday time when you are going to have a lot of family around.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can be comforting, sometimes it can
Yeah.
be overwhelming, but the memory box is great of involving people on like, ask some people to write maybe a couple stories about grandma or about dad on there
Oh,
and put it in the memory box. Or they collect
wow.
things from like, maybe you guys always went to the beach in the summertime and here's a special rock from that beach. So connection through stories or through things that remind us of places that we've been.
Yeah.
Um, Memory boxes are really great, and you can be so creative with that too and use it for stories. You can use it for other things, and it can kind of change um as their grieving changes.
That makes me so happy to hear that because that's such a great experience, not only for the children, but for the adults to do that with them, right? So it can be very like profound in that experience. That's so
Yeah.
beautiful. That's so
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah,
And
it's
then,
one of my favorite ones for
yeah,
sure.
that's like really great. And then with the holidays, do you think there's some additional things that parents can do or kind of like bring to the month as a tradition, perhaps, or something like that?
Yeah, for sure. And I think definitely the holidays, whether it's Thanksgiving, but especially Christmas,
Yeah.
seems to stir up a lot of emotions.
Yeah.
I think especially if it's maybe really soon after the
Yeah.
person has died,
Yeah.
that, it's like, okay, do we stick with routine and same tradition? Do we do something different? Like I know one family that, I worked with, they were just like, you know what, we're going to Cuba for Christmas.
Yeah. I love that.
They're like, we're gonna change it up.
Yeah.
Or um I remember our first Christmas without my mom. We did do like the typical, big turkey dinner and stuff like that, but we
Yeah.
actually had a friend of mine, her mom made us all of it. So again, accepting things that are
Um,
really different. And she was like, here, all you guys
yeah.
have to do is warm all this up, right? But I think it's a unique opportunity to either, and again, involve the kids, but like
Yeah.
either stick with some routines and traditions or don't be
Mhm.
afraid to change that up. Again, it could be
Yeah.
a distractor like a trip or ordering Chinese food, which is something maybe we wouldn't normally do at Christmas, although some families do that,
Yeah.
which I love. Or it could be, yeah, like a great opportunity to do set up like a different routine. So when we think about the
Yeah.
memory box around Christmas, sometimes we do a memory tree. So kind of the same sort of
Oh,
thing, but you can get, those little tiny trees, or you can do it on your own tree. And again, like either get the kids to draw some pictures or get family involved, of, sharing stories or little letters that you might want to write. Like I still write birthday cards to my mom every single year.
oh, that's
um,
amazing. That makes me so happy because that's such
right?
a powerful experience.
Yeah, and so I think involving the person who has died too, of like, let's write some letters. Like we still take a little Christmas tree out to my mom's grave and we kind of decorate it. I don't know if we're allowed
Oh,
to do that, but they don't say anything other than
right? They can
but we
just
do
enjoy
it.
whatever. We're doing it, okay?
Yeah, and like the little granddaughters, they make like little Christmas ornaments and we put them out
Oh,
there for grandma. So those things, like the Christmas ornaments you can do too. So anything I think that involves the person who, physically isn't there,
yeah,
don't be afraid to like still involve them, create some different memories and routines. Some other things some people do, and this may depend on like, like religious preferences too, would be like to attend a church service if that maybe was something you did, or maybe it wasn't something you did and you want
yeah,
to, involve that too. Religion and like beliefs like that can be really comforting at this time.
yeah.
But not being afraid, I guess, to talk about that person, especially around Christmas.
That I love this. That just makes me so happy because it's such a hard time when you're grieving or, missing somebody through those holiday or birthday experiences. I find I always have to prepare myself. And,
Yeah.
kids sometimes are like experiencing that through that. So when we have those positive outlets and things that we can kind of unite and acknowledge it together, I find it makes such a difference.
Yeah, and I think with the parents supporting the kids too is not being afraid to maybe like make a call and make some of those
Yeah.
changes, right? Like if you as a parent think like if you're usually hosting and you're like I could not possibly host this
Yeah.
year,
Yeah.
then don't,
Yeah.
like just don't do it.
Yeah.
And you can again involve the kids and let them know like look, like me and grandma normally would have done this together and it's really hard on me to do that without this person, and so
Mhm.
I think we're going to do something different this year and here's what it's going to look like. And what kind of ideas do you guys have to maybe like bring grandma or grandpa like in a sense, um
Oh,
and I guarantee they usually have some pretty awesome ideas.
I love that. That makes me so happy. And then do you think there's anything else that's really important to kind of bring forward for individuals in this kind of conversation that we're having of like supporting children or acknowledging different aspects of them?
Yeah, I think it's just, and again, like with development and age, I read something once that says, well, you don't want to um, answer questions that they've asked and leave way for them to ask more questions, which I feel like if anybody else out here can figure out how to do that, I would be
Right?
really interested. Because I'm like, they're like, just answer their question, but don't provide more information so that they feel confused and then they ask more questions. And I'm like, well, how the heck do you do that with
Well,
kids?
and
Like,
let's encourage conversation.
yeah.
They're feeling safe to converse with you. Let's keep it going.
Yeah, totally. So I think the one thing is too, like kids will have really tough questions.
Yeah,
I shared that story of you when my daughter was around like 4 or 5, and we went to my grandma's or to my mom's grave. And we're religious, we're Christians, so our belief is that grandma is in heaven.
yeah,
And so we were explaining to my daughter, like she said, well, her body's here, her spirit is in heaven. And my daughter says, well, what's her spirit? And I said, okay, well, her spirit is like her feelings and her memories and all those things. Like her heart is in heaven.
yeah.
And so then she says, so they cut out her heart and they put it up in heaven?
Like a classic. That would be Nico.
So like, but just think of like the logic and like in their heads that like, well, I guess that is technically what I said.
Yeah,
Right.
right?
So I think answering the questions, moving through whatever they're going to say, and it could
Yeah,
be a little bit maybe more morbid than we might
yeah,
expect, because as adults, again, with this uncomfortable feeling, we kind of want to tiptoe and we don't want to say or ask anything that might make somebody else feel uncomfortable. But when you give kids space to do that, you find a lot of maybe like humor, a lot of innocence, and things that you're like, wow, I wouldn't have asked that, or I wouldn't have thought that would have been a question I have to answer. And again, I think just going with that, because
yeah,
death is normal. We have to normalize it. It's okay for them to talk about it, for us to talk about it, for them to be sad, for us to be sad. And just, yeah, just we ought to move through it. Like we have to
oh,
process it.
it's so true. I love that. I love that. I'm so grateful that we're able to like share this experience together and talk about this because it's something I'm really passionate about is trying to support the children and the families, supporting them as well because it can
Totally.
feel very diluted and you don't know where you're overstepping and understepping a lot of times.
Totally. Yeah, because we're not at our best either when we're
Yeah.
grieving.
Yeah.
So it's hard to think of another person, especially maybe another really little person, and then try to
Yeah.
be like, hey, like, what do they need? What are they feeling? Right. And so I think it's just allowing ourselves to feel it or talk about it, however is natural to us, but
Yeah.
not necessarily always trying to like protect them from it.
Yes, yes. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Now, I'm curious because I want to ask you a few questions about your personal experience. I want to know
Okay.
what has grief taught you about yourself?
Oh, that I feel like,
That's the response. Everybody starts with this.
ah,
Literally, it's amazing.
right? It's just like a big sigh. The biggest thing I think with grief is that, and me and maybe you or others, of course, might feel this too, is I've learned that I don't actually think I'm grieving, but I actually was. Like, like I think
Does
back.
it not shock you sometimes when you like sit back and you're like, oh, this is grief? I had no idea.
Yeah, like I feel like you're just like, oh, I'm sad, but then I'm happy, and then
Yeah,
like you're going through the emotions, and as a counselor, I'm always very aware, I think, of when I'm having those feelings. But with grief, it's been like, whoa, I didn't know I was grieving and struggling as much as I was until some time has passed and you looked back and you're like, wow, I was a hot mess. Like,
yeah,
what was I doing? Like after my uncle's funeral in Alberta in the summertime, we were supposed to go camping. And, Yale was like, my husband was like, well, should we still go? Like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, well, of course we should still go. And hindsight now, looking back, like that was the worst camping week ever. Like it was terrible. Like we were fighting. I wasn't cooking the eggs properly. Like I was emotional. Like it was such a mess of things, but you don't realize it when you're in it. Like I was just like, I'm
yeah,
obviously tired and I'm
yeah.
obviously sad. But I think grief has just taught me that like I don't know that I'm grieving when I actually am.
Yeah. Those waves come out of nowhere too. right?
Yeah.
Like it just,
Yeah.
it hits you. Like I'll never forget, like just being in the grocery store looking at like just an item and it hitting me, and all of a sudden bawling in Walmart and being like, oh.
Totally. Yeah, just like memories that come up and you're like, whoa, that's a trigger.
Right? Trying to keep it together so people aren't like flooding to you of like, are you okay? Because you're like, I can't navigate this right now.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah. It's like
prone.
don't look directly at me.
Right?
Right.
I am invisible.
Oh gosh,
That's
hey, totally.
amazing. And then what do you think you have really changed within yourselves through the journey of grief? Because I know for me, like different aspects of myself have altered or dimmed or enhanced, right? Do you find that
Hmm.
you experienced anything that's changed really within you?
Oh gosh, so much too.
Yeah.
Good and not so good. I
Yeah.
think grief, yeah, totally 100% changes you short term and also I think long term. I think, the cliche thing has changed me of like, really being there for people,
Yeah.
making time for people, memories with people, pictures, all of those things that, you kind of go back and you're like, oh, shoulda, woulda, coulda done
Yeah.
that, right? The kind of struggle I've had the most with grief is this like the YOLO, like you only live once.
Yeah.
Which has resulted in like let's just and again I see how this could be good and bad, but it's like
Yeah.
let's just take the trip. Let's just buy the things, right? Because like who knows, right? Who
It's true
knows? And I
though.
think that's maybe normal, but
Yeah.
I think for me, the bad part of that, how it's changed me, is that I do kind of get hyper focused on that,
Yeah.
and the sometimes like that health anxiety gets to me,
Yeah.
right? Of just
Yeah.
like, I feel this in my body. Like, well, what does that mean? And
Yeah.
sometimes I'll catch myself like saying to my husband, like, oh, probably have cancer, and he's like, well, maybe you just have a headache and you just need, to take
Yeah.
some Advil or you're tired. But I think that's also like a irrational but also like maybe natural thought process to have sometimes, right? Of just
Yes.
like, anything could happen. And I think appreciating the memories, but it's also done a thing to me where it's like I seek out a lot more memories,
Mm.
which I don't think is necessarily a terrible thing. It's just
Yeah.
trying to find the balance of that.
It's hard creating that stuff because there's so much effort put into it too. So it's like it's
Yes.
the balancing the
Mhm.
self-care and the overcreation component too. I find that's a
Yeah.
struggle.
Yes, totally.
Right? Like,
Yes.
for example, this weekend it was my son's birthday. I was up till 2 decorating this cake. And it was because I had so much work to do, and then I had to get it done because I knew as soon as the kids were up, it wasn't going to get done. So I had,
Right.
right? And then looking back, you're like, you probably should have bought the cake. Like, don't make
Right.
it next time. I was like, Jason, this was my last cake. Just so
Yeah. Yeah. Just simplify it.
my,
Simplify it.
my life has changed to the point I cannot be that housewife anymore. It's just kind of recognizing
Fair.
those things, right?
For
So,
sure.
yeah, that's amazing. I
Yeah.
love that. You make me feel seen through sharing that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, can I ask you, through like receiving support, do you think there was anything that really stood out that was a benefit for you in these experiences, or something that you realized you really needed through grief?
Um, I really needed people to ask me about my mom or to ask me
Oh,
about my uncle. Which was something, I mean, I'm a pretty open book. I talk a lot,
yeah,
I share a lot.
yeah,
I don't necessarily keep things close. Some may
yeah.
say I'm an oversharer maybe at times. I don't know. But I
I don't
feel
see that. I think it's great.
good, good.
Yeah, I
Um,
love it.
but I think with grief people, and I know my friends had said, they're like, we don't want to ask you because we don't want you to feel sad. And I was
Oh,
like, well, guys, I appreciate that, but you know what? I feel sad anyways.
yeah.
And I think I've learned that about myself too, even with friends who have lost people, that maybe I'm
Yeah.
not asking them enough about that person.
Yeah.
But I felt at times definitely following my mom's grief, when friends reach out and again they want to do nice things for you, get you out, get your mind off of it. But I
Yeah.
do feel like there was a lot of like awkward avoidance about
Yeah.
bringing up my mom or talking about
Yeah.
her, and
Yeah.
that's nobody's fault. I think that's just the
Yeah.
reality of grief, and when friends want to do right and just be like, we just want to like do something to comfort you and make you happy.
Yeah.
But I did learn about myself that I really want to talk about those people that I lost.
It's so true though.
Yeah.
It's like to think of like even just heading into a holiday and somebody stopping and asking, what's your favorite memory with that individual? Like, if somebody took the time to ask me that, I would probably start crying because
Huge, right?
you want that. You want their voice, their memory, and the impact in your life to be shared because you can't share it with
Sure.
them.
No, and I feel like you're always thinking about them anyways, especially during
Yes.
the holidays or especially during like their birthday or
Yeah.
something. And so that was the biggest thing for me is just I just want people to ask me or just to like
Oh,
bring her up or just like
yeah.
talk about her. And yeah, that's the thing that maybe surprised me about my
Yeah.
grief a little bit.
Yeah, and I feel like it's a hard thing that people are like hesitant to do. But then when they actually start opening up and people feel safe that they're not going to get judged of over talking or this and that or igniting trauma by sharing stuff, it's like we can like grow and foster that together. It's an experience to bond
Yeah.
in a different way.
Yeah, well, and just asking people or kids, right? It's okay to ask for permission to ask about a person or to bring up the
Yeah.
grief, right? Like, hey,
Yeah.
I want to ask you about some memories of your mom. Like,
Yeah.
is that okay if I do that, right? Or like, do
Yeah.
you want to share a story about this? Asking people, I think, is something that we often overlook, but
Yeah.
in counseling, we do it a lot, right? Like, do you want
Yeah.
to talk about this today? Do you want to do this today? How are you feeling if we go down this road, and asking
Yeah.
that permission again, I think would really validate to the other person that like, okay, they're very aware that I'm
Yeah.
obviously really missing this person right now. And I love that they ask that so I can kind of have control over if I talk about them or not, right? Or share something.
Oh, that's amazing. Ashley, thank you. I have to thank you so much for sharing your voice with us and just sharing your experience. It really means the world to me.
Well, thank you. I loved that you asked. And I think when we had met and I said to you, I'm like, it's odd, I think, to have such passion around such a tough topic. But I said to you,
Yeah,
I love exploring this topic. I think it's
yeah,
one that, the more we talk about it, the more we learn, the
yeah,
more we share that with others, that it is normal. It's so uncomfortable, but it is normal.
yeah.
And really like how can we support the kids with that too.
Yes, yes. And it's such a gift to be able to have that exchange and support for them. It just the ripples into their life is so significant. So I just want people,
Yeah.
to realize that it's important to hold space with them and
Yeah.
not just in the first year, but the years following.
Right. Because grief comes in waves. I mean, that's the other thing I've
Always.
learned. Like, people are like, well, does it lessen or does it, go away? And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, it does not go away. And I said, I guess lessens in a sense that I feel like the waves come up, maybe less often than they used to, but I always
Yeah.
feel like when grief comes, it's a 10 out of 10. Like I don't
Yeah.
ever feel like, oh, I'm like a 5 out of 10 on the grief
Yeah.
scale. When it's there, it's always a 10 out of 10. But I feel
Yeah.
like as time goes, it maybe doesn't pop up as much,
Well, and
if
it's
that makes sense.
interesting. Yeah, it's interesting for me too because like I find the first 3 years you're kind of still in like a hyper aware state that things have really dramatically changed. But I find as like the times go on and the impact of the overall grief, it gets heavier and denser in a lot of ways. Like it
Yeah.
hits deeper because you
Yeah.
see how much time you're experiencing that you wish you could share with them.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think that's really important for people to really be aware of through the experience of like how much deeper it hits as the years go on and less people are aware that you still need support.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's true. It's like everybody's like, oh, the first year or all those firsts are really hard, and people will
Yeah.
often reach out and text and like send
Yes.
stuff, but then, 6 years later, it's still just as hard
Yeah.
for in those specific moments, and you process it in a different way, not that you really just miss that person. It's like you miss them, and like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, it's been 5 Christmases without that person,
Right.
right? Or like 5 New Years or
Right.
5 birthdays without them. And that can lead to so many other like feelings of grief too.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Well, listen, if you guys aren't aware, Ashley is incredible. I always recommend families with children who are navigating grief to her because I just speak so
Thank you.
highly of her passion and her work. And I'm going to share her information. She's out of Wild Therapy in Regina. And you do Zoom too, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we do some virtual sessions as well because I know when you guys had moved over, Nico and I had a few virtual ones too.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely like it's not the best option sometimes
Yeah.
for little kids, depending on their attention level, but some kids do really great at it because
Yeah.
honestly, like kids are growing up in this technology era,
Yeah.
so some of them are just used to it. But yes, we definitely offer Zoom
Yeah.
and in-person sessions for sure.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fantastic. So I just want to say thank you again. And I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. Please make sure to leave either questions or comments of support of Ashley or anything that kind of drew like an awareness to you through this, because a lot of times we hear these conversations and we're like, oh, wow, I never thought of that. And it's always great for us to hear that. Hey,
Totally. Yeah, because like I said, I work with kids, but
yeah,
it's also connecting with the families too. And yeah, that's a big thing for me as a parent is just like connecting with the parents too of like
yeah.
it's okay for you to have these feelings. We've all experienced some aspect of this and we can be like connect and be vulnerable together with it.
I love it. And I'm going to share some of the resources and different information that Ashley has been kind enough to take time to share with me because they're exceptional. So you guys will love them.
Yeah, yeah, they're great.
Oh, well, thank you again. And Grief Connection, we're so grateful to hold space with you. Have the most beautiful day. Bye.